I would give them the advice to listen to their clients. What are their needs? Try to find what you're going to excel at while still, pick your lane, pick your niche, and then listen along the way.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Jeremy Kanne. And Jeremy went to high school and was, in his own words, an overachiever or loved STEM and all of those type of areas. Went off to college and studied civil engineering. Also got into some comedy improv and enjoyed the balancing the areas of creativity and engineering. And it's always a fine balance. And then graduated and was a civil engineer for about 6 years, and also did a few side hustles more in the theater industry as well. Quit engineering, focused on doing a marketing career. Did a lot of website design and design services to start out with, and then worked his way up in the company, and then started Smart Yeti, which is a current company, which is focused on everything from video production to fractional chief marketing officer services and other things. So with that much as an introduction, welcome on the podcast, Jeremy.
Thank you for having me, Devin. It's really fun to have your professional life just summarized in 2 minutes ahead of an introduction. It's delightful. I know it so well.
Like, hey, I felt like my life it would be a little bit more difficult to describe, and somebody takes it and puts it into 45 seconds. It really puts a point on it. So it's always fun to do it. But now that I've given the summarized and much condensed version, now we're going to unpack that a bit and walk through it a bit more on your journey. So maybe doing that, let's go back a little bit to high school when you got into STEM and found your love for that.
Sure, yeah. Back in high school, like you said, I was an overachiever. I remember, so I was just recounting this with my partner yesterday, how I had signed up for an extracurricular called WYSE, WYSE, Worldwide Youth in Science and Engineering. And this extracurricular was just about taking tests. It was, you pick 2 STEM subjects and you study for them, and then you go to a regional event and you take a test to see who's the best at it. And that was something that I found fun in high school. And I think that, puts a nice point on the type of person that I was and what I was focusing on that time. But also, awesome. I learned theater. I was in my senior year, I was the set director for a play. So I got into learning organizational and team building type of skills. How do you wrangle a bunch of teenagers that are just drama kids to be able to build something, literally build something that we needed by a certain time. I think back on that time as just like the first kernel that started the Pearl.
No, that's awesome. And it sounds like, it's interesting because generally you don't see that balance of creativity and engineering passion, because usually it's almost 2 different mindsets, and it's often hard to find that balance. But it sounds like, you found a love and enjoyment for both of those. So now you went off to college and I think got a civil engineering degree, and at the same time was also doing comedy improv. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. My life has been sort of this stark example of how you can, or at least how I can, enjoy both analytical thinking and creative expression. And in college, I was studying diligently for a really tough engineering degree, civil engineering at U of I. Whether rightly or wrongly, it was rated as one of the best in the nation. And so they had a program that they really wanted to school students on, really test them. And it was difficult. I remember spending a lot of time studying for tests that, looking back, I don't know how to transform a matrices. At that time I did, but now I'm like, wow, I learned that. I learned that because I had to take a composites class. And at the same time, I was having a ton of fun learning the principles of comedy improv, learning how to be able to, perform on stage without any script, build a team in that regard for creative expression, being able to create a scene in seconds, which also has a lot of ties into how I work with my clients, work with team members in my clients or other partners. That comedy improv was the wellspring of how I find consensus and build consensus with other team members and do it enjoyably. It doesn't have to be a pain. We can have fun doing this. And
Hmm.
I have this example of how we did it. It was just a different type of product. It was making a scene, but now we're doing it for marketing.
No, makes perfect sense, and sounds like an early setup for what you'd do later on in the career. So now, did that, going through school, graduated, and I think you went to work in civil engineering for about 6 years. Is that right?
That's right. Yep. I worked for three engineering companies around the Chicagoland area, really cut my teeth on what doing engineering in the professional arena was like, and also got a taste of both public and private experience. I worked for a private company in the middle of my professional engineering career that farmed us out to IDOT, Illinois Department of Transportation, and we were consulting engineers working under the direction of publicly funded engineers. So I got to see both sides of how business worked, what I thought was working and what I thought didn't. This area of my life really fostered my desire to be helping make decisions, because I would be on a team and doing work and thought either we could be moving faster or moving in a better direction. Um, and and I thought that this is where I started thinking that I could be a good manager, is watching other managers in the civil engineering industry.
Hmm. No, makes perfect sense. So now you did that 6 years, and then so as you're working there, good amount of experience and starting to get further along in your career. What kind of made you shift gears and say, okay, I've been in civil engineering, this is what I got my degree in, worked in there for 6 years, and now I'm going to quit and go into marketing. And I know it, just as a side note, you mentioned that you're also at the same time doing some theater side hustle, so you're kind of continuing to keep your creativity sharpened, so to speak. But what kind of led to that transition from civil engineering to marketing? Because thing is, both are fun fields, both are have great aspects about them, but they are
Yep.
certainly a different area. So kind of walk us through that a bit.
Yeah, very different. I got bored is the simple answer. Halfway through engineering, I was having a great time. I was learning a lot of specifics. I had this general sort of education gifted to me by working under great engineers about how to be a good civil engineer. And I started working my way into a niche, something that was more interesting. I focused on drainage and worked my way up to being sort of like the strategy level of a drainage engineer, where we were planning the first step of planning. So, real rough cut sort of planning and engineering. Can a project even work? What would the general cost be? What are the things that we need to consider at this time in order to either greenlight or not greenlight a project? And that was like the most interesting I could get. And I still got bored because it still felt like I was essentially solving the same problem over and over again.
Hmm.
And that's what bored me in engineering. I spent 3 years kind of feeling that way and not feeling like I could get more creative expression or more interesting type of problems to solve, or variance in projects and problems to solve. So that's what got me to really seriously consider exiting that career. And what attracted me about marketing is that it seemed like it was creative expression in a professional sense. And yeah, using my perspective as an engineer to sort of guide that creative expression also seemed to be a novel approach, or at least a valuable one, given some clients that I've worked with and done really great work for. They've really enjoyed having someone that has both creative experience and technical expertise. Um, Helps both in process and in understanding of value, when that value can be complicated at times. Say you're a tech company and you have a lot of work going on behind the background. What do you pick out as what you highlight as your value? How do you choose that? What are you using as a process to evaluate it?
No, and that makes sense. Now, if one maybe just a quick follow-up question. So, I mean, definitely getting bored. That's not to make the podcast about me, but just as a 30-second, that's why I ended up going into IP law, because I went and did electrical engineering as undergraduate, and I kind of said the same. Now, I never even went into the field. I just went straight to law school. But, I looked at it and said, hey, what typically happens is you get stuck on one project, doing it for a long period of time. You have very little input for the first quite a bit of your career. It takes a long time to work up. And then eventually you get there and you have a small amount of input to large, bigger projects. And I just said, I don't want to do that. I want to be able to see a lot of cool stuff and work on a lot of interesting things, which led me in a different direction, which is patent law, which, leveraged the technical undergraduate. But with all of that as a lead up, my question is so, what made you, I get on the creative nature, and maybe that's what led you. How did you so you get bored, you say, okay, got to do something different. This isn't fulfilling. I can't see myself doing this in 20 years and being happy type of a thing. So how did you then land on marketing, or kind of what pushed you in that direction or gave you that insight to go or start doing that?
As I was exiting engineering, I was trying to pick what my next career would be as best as I could. And I had a passion already building for photography at that time. I was doing landscape photography, just really cutting my teeth on learning composition, and I loved it. And so I thought I was going to be a photographer, professional photographer. Lo and behold, as I looked at that career, it looked so daunting and really risky, financially risky, because even some of the best photographers don't become financially successful in what I was looking for. So I pretty quickly abandoned that, but I traded it out for design and web design. That seemed to be a pretty good need at the time, a business need, in terms of a valuable product and service. And it was interesting to me. It wasn't as interesting as photography, but it still had some of those elements like composition, choosing visual elements, and trying to achieve the best visual composition, and utilize that for businesses and corporate. That led me into choosing or that love of photography actually got me started on Smart Yeti initially as a video production agency. And that's what that sort of informed that choice, because it was like photography but more complicated. So it was a better business product for me, to be able to sell to a business, because they didn't feel like they could do it on their own, as opposed to, say, headshots. People are like, why am I paying a ton of money for headshots? Well, if you want quality, you pay for it. But it was a harder sell than saying, we want a 3-minute video and we don't really know how to even make that. So how can you help?
No, makes sense. And yeah, I can get that. And I mean, it's sometimes it's not even just, is it a good or a bad product? It's, to your point, is there a value proposition that people can readily understand and identify? And just because they need it doesn't mean they're willing to pay for it or recognize the value. And so you have to find that right balance. And it sounds like, video production was the area that made sense. I kind of gave you that balance there. So now you go here, so you start Smart Yeti, go down that route. Now give us an idea, kind of when did it start? How's it been going? Where's it at today? Kind of walk us through that a bit.
Yeah, the journey of Smart Yeti is a story unto itself, because it's taken 3 major forms as a company, and it's always been centered around me trying to find the best value that I can bring to the business sector, and finding different areas of opportunity there. I've never really wanted to have an agency per se. I always wanted to have a niche that I understood really well and provided great service for. Originally, and using my sort of engineer's perspective on creativity as a foundational aspect of it. That started out as video. Video production has a lot of details to it. Key in part is, how do you choose what is going to be in the video and why? And then how much flair or how expensive do you want this video to be? That trade-off of, you want it to look really good and be really effective, but what's your budget, and how much can you afford? finding that middle ground of everything that you need, but nothing more than you need to pay for was a interesting question to solve for corporate video. And that's what we focused on first as Smart Yeti, as being a video production agency that would understand both the marketing need for a video for a business, but also help understand what you can cut so you can afford it without being, bargain basement type of video, really cheap or cookie cutter. You still wanted a custom video, but the devil's in the details. And that was a lot of fun for a long time. I did that as a main focus for a couple of years, started that around at 2015. And then pretty quickly after that, folded in all of my design experience, all that website, all that strict design, digital design that I had been doing as a freelancer before I had started Smart Yeti, the video production agency, folded those clients in and made Smart Yeti into more of a creative agency. We're going to be doing things on the brand and brand asset creation side. So, websites, design, video, photography, we would be managing those projects for a business. And it was great. It worked great. What I didn't like about it was that it was very project based. And I also felt like I was solving a part of the problem rather than helping with the larger problem, which was what got me interested in transitioning Smart Yeti into a fractional chief marketing officer service. I'd be working with people on the brand side, and they would hire us for a very specific project, a video, a website. And so often I would be having questions about how does this fit into your larger strategy? How are we going to find the ROI for this? And they usually just didn't have a good answer, which to me seemed like a really big opportunity to help. Small businesses just seemed like they were leaving that strategy component in marketing off the table. Oftentimes, it seemed like because they didn't know enough and were frustrated that they couldn't easily tell when something in marketing was working or predict what would work. And so, what projects should we do and why? Instead of just saying, I feel like we need a new website, which is a fine place to start. How are you going to use that website to further your business in a very specific way? That was essentially the really interesting challenge, really interesting, always variable challenge that I was looking for from the very beginning of my career switch. Something that I would never get bored of in marketing that still was tied to creative expression. So now what we're doing is being that high level marketing strategy for small businesses. We're being that CMO level of taking business goals and translating it into a marketing strategy. And then if they so desire, helping manage that marketing strategy with however their marketing team is made up. Sometimes it's their internal employees, sometimes it's external agencies. You still get a central point who understands the business as well as the marketing strategy. That's what a fractional CMO does. And that's why I love it.
Oh, that's cool. And I said, I agree with you on the kind of on the point you're hitting on that, it's almost kind of like when we talked earlier on in your journey, it's hard to find that balance between engineering and creativity because generally the mindset is different. You use one side of the brain or the other for that. And, most of the time that skill set is pretty different. And so I think on that same note, a lot of times you'll get people that are very good at building products or building businesses, but they don't necessarily have that marketing mindset or they don't have the time or bandwidth to give the thought and effort needed for that. And so they're saying, hey, we know we need this video to explain it. That's about all we need to know. Now go create it. And I think that, having that creativity, but also direction and insight as to what matters, why you should do it, how do we get a return on this, how does it fit within your business and with your other efforts, I think are great areas to define that, that niche or that ability to give that additional value add, which turns it in from just here's a video that you may or may not like to here's something that will help to grow and leverage your business. So I think that all sounds like a great position to be in. So now with that, kind of catch us up. Where's the business at today? Is it taking off like a rocket ship and it's doing amazing, or is still continuing to evolve, still figuring things out? You're ready to retire. You're ready to go bankrupt. Where's it at today, and where do you see the next 6 to 12 months going for you?
Things are going well. This latest transition of what Smart Yeti is has been for the last 2 years. So to me, that we've been at a great successful position. We're working with several small business clients to help them with their marketing strategy. Currently looking for two more, and then it's going to be a great decision on how the business grows. I've always been a huge fan of slow growth, evolving to make the best version of yourself by learning along the way. So I've been learning a lot in these last 2 years about what it means to be a great fractional CMO, provide great value for a fantastic price. And it's been fantastic and a great journey. Still lots of room to grow as we're still learning and evolving. But I'm a lifetime learner, so I'm never going to stop learning and evolving.
No, it sounds like a great place to be and a great place to head. So now with that, now as we kind of caught up to the present day of your journey and even looking just a little bit into the future, it's a great time to transition to the two questions I always ask towards the end of each episode. So we'll jump to those now, which is first question I always ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made? What'd you learn from it?
So back when Smart Yeti was a creative agency, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, in that realm, I had made the decision to hire an employee before I was really ready to hire an employee. And I did it on the sales side. Obviously this has some really easy emotional tie to why I did it. I wanted more sales, and I didn't really understand how to get that in a meaningful way, in a specific way. And so at that time, I thought I would solve my problem by hiring a sales employee. Months later, didn't get the ROI that I desired, and I was out a bunch of money. But I did learn a lot about the intricacies and risk, financial risk, business risk of hiring an employee, your first employee, the hardest one, and how much consideration you should take into doing that before doing it. And also that it probably shouldn't be your sales first. It probably should be an employee that's taking other operations off your desk so that you can sell more, because you're the most likely sales winner, sales leader of the company, the person that's been doing the sales. So those are two really big lessons I learned that were pretty difficult to get through.
No, and I think that one is a hard one when you're wanting, or when you're early on in the business to want to dive into. And I think for multiple reasons. One is, you always think, hey, this is just a sales job. If you're good at sales, then I'll just bring you on and money will rain from the sky and we'll have more work than we know what to do with. And one, you have to find the right person that will fit the culture, that will be able to do it. And most of the time when you're early on, your best salesperson is still you. In other words, a person that started the business can explain it the best, knows how to do it, has the relationships, has the background and experience. And it takes, I think, a lot longer to figure that out than oftentimes that we give credence to. And so I definitely get, but at the same time, you're just saying, hey, I've got too many things on my plate. What's the easiest one to hand off? Well, sales is a good one. And then you find out sometimes you bring people on too early, which is I think a good, easy mistake to make, but a good one to learn from. Second question now that I always ask is, now if you're talking to someone that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one piece of advice you give them?
I would give them the advice to listen to their clients. What are their needs? Try to find what you're going to excel at while still, pick your lane, pick your niche, and then listen along the way. Say you want to get into, a particular area of business. And let's use an old example of my professional career. I had created a theory of businesses would want a tailored video product. Great. distill that into something that you can really quickly express your value proposition, and then go test it out and listen. That listening will get you not to it'll get you to the final state of what you think is good and what the market thinks is good and what they'll value. And really that's going to be the formula for making a successful business, is having both something that you can express and know you're good at and can be good at, and that the market really wants and will pay for. So those are the two sides for a starting business that I would really recommend for them to look at.
No, I think that's some great piece of advice and some great takeaways on everything. So, well, awesome. Well, now as we are wrapping up the episode, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
You can always go to my website, smartyeti.co. That's co, not .com. Or you can email me at jeremy@smartyeti.co, or find me on LinkedIn, Jeremy Kanne, LinkedIn. Always happy to talk.
Awesome. Well, definitely encourage everybody to reach out, make a new connection, support a great company, and if nothing else, make a new best friend. So with that, thank you again, Jeremy, for coming on the podcast. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you, the listeners that are out there, if you have your own journey to share and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, we'd love to have you. So just go to inventiveguest.com, apply to be on the show. Couple more things as listeners, make sure to click share, subscribe, leave us a review. Helps us to reach even more startups and small businesses to help them along their journey to success. And last but not least, if you ever need help with your patents, your trademarks, or anything else with your startup or your small business, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Well, thank you again, Jeremy, for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thank you for having me, Devin. It's a pleasure.